Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Maintenant, je vais passer au Président Charles Michel.
Precisely, President Ruto, William, what is your view about your situation and your expectations, your demands vis-à-vis this global institution, and how to fix the situation in your country and the continent?
Thank you very much, Macron, and thank you for daring to call us to this meeting. I'm told it was How Dare You conference, but in any case, we're here. Let me just speak to this in two ways. Number one, I have had my sister Kristalina and Bangra, and we have excellent relations with the World Bank and IMF from Kenya. And these people have been incredibly of assistance, and we sincerely appreciate. But I am also aware that both Kristalina and Bangra have a job to do, and they have people they report to, called shareholders, and they don't have the final word. The final word rests with somebody else. And that is why we are almost all of us speaking the same language, because we seem to be on the same corner. There are people who are not sitting here, yet they call the shots. Now, we have a situation, and let me speak from the perspective of Kenya, our continent in Africa, and the global south. We need emergency liquidity. We need debt relief. We need urgently new money, with urgency, with scale. That's our situation. How are we going to get that in the current situation? Listening to Guterres this morning, we get development resources 8 times more expensively than others. We have inadequate resources, and it takes forever to access it. So, how do we, how do we make meaning of this summit that my brother Emmanuel has put together? Our position is that if you want to get debt relief, emergency liquidity, and new money together, let us live here having agreed on one thing, that, like Guterres has said, let's look for 500 billion new money. But if we are going to distribute it the way we did SDR, we will end up with nothing. SDR, we ended up with $33 billion in our continent of 1.2 billion people. Europe, with 450 million people, ended up with 5 times what we got. You heard it this morning, not from me, from the UN Secretary General, that we got 13 times less as Africans as compared to Europeans, because the whole architecture, and by the way, it was fair by the architecture, the current architecture of the financial system. But it is grossly unfair when you are looking at fairness. So, what are we saying? Our position, good people, is we do the following. Let us agree that the money we are supposed to pay for the next 10 years as repayment of debt, let us convert it into a new loan that is 50-year loan with 20-year grace period, so that you don't have a problem with your AAA rating. You can continue to have the AAA rating, but you don't have a problem with your shareholders because you haven't given away any money. You've just changed the structure. and we get both liquidity, we get it urgently, and we can develop our countries. For Kenya, for example, we pay $10 billion every year to service our debts. If I had $10 billion every year for development in Kenya, instead of paying debt, it would make a huge difference. That's all we're asking. We're saying, let's have something that is practical so that we live here, that next year, I don't have to pay $10 billion to pay debt. It will have been rescheduled. I will pay it 20 years from now, and I will have 30 years to pay that money. I will make that money available for roads, for health, for water, for education. It will make a hell lot of difference. We will have done something with this conference. We can discuss governance, we can discuss reform, we can discuss transformation of our multilateral development institutions. That will take time. We are talking about the debts that we already have. They have already been assessed. All the things, all the rigmaroles have gone through. That's why we already owe. So we are saying, let us take either 10, 15, 20-year debt that we would have paid for the next 20 years. Let's have that money to grow our economies. It will make a whole difference. That's number one. Number two, let us be deliberate about climate financing. Those are the two things I'm going to ask. Let's be deliberate about climate financing. Since we agreed in 2015 on emissions, that we reduce emissions by 45% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Are we moving anywhere in that direction? No. What has happened? Since Paris 2015, developed countries, they have tried because they have resources. Europe has come down 20%. OECD countries have come down 12%. But what has happened with the rest of the world? Emissions have gone up 37%. Net, we've gone up, the whole globe, we've gone up 17%. And last year, we spent $950 billion on fossil fuels. We only spent $500 billion on renewable energy. It means the journey towards net zero is not going forward, it's going in reverse. So what do we do? Because we have to agree on what to do. Our position is that there is a contest between national interest and global good. And in a contest between national interest and global good, national interest wins. Because we are politicians. Macron is a politician. And in politics, your constituency comes first. That is why we have not been able to get the 100 billion promised in Glasgow. Because every politician goes home and says, oh, you know, there's a global problem called climate change. We need to get money from you guys to go and sort out that problem. So the people of their country ask them, how is it our problem? A global issue? Why do we have to raise money to go and sort out a global issue? We run into trouble. So we need a new financing mechanism. We need a new global financial institution. It is not possible, I dare say, to sort out a global problem using national institutions or institutions that are subject to national interest or institutions that are subject to shareholder interests. How do we do it? Let me conclude. How do we do it? This is our proposal. There are already 4 proposals on the table. My good sister here from the IMF and others have said we should explore the possibility of what she calls, I think, carbon, no, not carbon credits, carbon, the proposal you made to G20, where they're saying the least developed countries pay $25 US. Yeah, carbon price flow, right? They've said, let's make a proposal. $25 US for the least developed, $50 per ton on carbon, and 75. Assuming that we even agree, and by the way, we are ready from the global south, we are ready from the continent of Africa to pay our part. We do not want to be given free lunch. We want to pay. Everybody should pay. Emitters should pay. Consumers should pay. The global south should pay. The global north should pay. Everybody should pay. If we go that direction, we should be able to raise, even if we use the $25 per ton of carbon, we should be able to raise $870 billion every year. One proposal on the table. Second proposal on the table. European Parliament have already passed the FTT, Financial Transaction Tax. And they have said they will raise in Europe $60 billion every year. If we globalize that tax, because this is not a European problem, this is a global problem. We also want to pay financial transaction tax in our continent, because this is not a North versus South problem. We have been engaged in an unnecessary contest between the North and the South. Climate change will consume all of us. Yeah? So we better deal with it globally, all of us. So what am I saying? I am saying let us globalize financial transaction tax. How much money will be raised? Will be raised, according to the European Parliament? $650 billion every year. Let us explore the possibility of aviation fuel tax. Let us explore the possibility of maritime fuel tax. Collectively, this whole regime, that is global, you know? Because if we continue the finger pointing and the blame game, we won't get anywhere. We need a mechanism that brings out win-win. If we put together all these mechanisms, we will end up with close to between 1.5 trillion and $2 trillion every year. If we securitize it, we will be approaching 9 or 8 trillion dollars every year. It is the money we need, because assessment requires that for us to meet the 2030 45 reduction and net zero by 2050, we need to invest $9.2 trillion every year. We will be approaching that number. So we need to sort out this in two ways. We sort out with the MDBs what we can get for our development. And we have told you how. We sort out climate change using a universal, global mechanism that is not subject to national interest, that is not hostage to shareholder interests, where all of us contribute, because climate change is a global issue and we need a global approach, global finances, and a global institution for us to sort it out. Finally, is it possible for us to achieve this? I dare say yes. How? Let me give you two examples. The UN Charter was negotiated by 50 countries in just 2 months. 2 months. The institution where Kristalina works and Bangra works was put together in a little town called Bretton Woods by 744 delegates from 44 countries in a discussion that took 3 weeks. We have many months before you come to Nairobi for the Africa Climate Summit. We have 3 months. It's a long time. We can put this together. we have many months before the next COP28. I am sure we can hammer out an agreement if we are committed to it. Thank you very much.